Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, over the past 24 hours, there has been some news to come out about the offensive coordinator search for the Detroit Lions. We've talked about it extensively in the past, whether it be talking about Joe Brady, talking about some of the other offensive coordinator hires from outside the organization, or talking about certain people and certain coaches that could take over the offensive coordinator position from within the organization already. But one person that we have yet to talk about that is very likely going to be interviewed by the Detroit Lions, or as it turns out, is very much in the running for the offensive coordinator job for the Detroit Lions, is former Kansas City offensive coordinator and former Chicago Bears head coach Matt Nagy. Now, Matt Nagy is in line for an interview for the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator position. And being a Lions fan and obviously being a head coach of the team that is a division rival of the Detroit Lions, Lions fans have a lot of opinions already on this particular subject and on this particular coaching hire. And today I wanted to go over Matt Nagy's career so far, talk about what he's good at, what he's not so good at, and really talk about whether or not Matt Nagy is the missing piece in this Detroit Lions coaching staff. So with that being said, and without any further ado, let's get into talking about Matt Nagy and his potential of being the Detroit Lions' future offensive coordinator. Now, Matt Nagy has had a relatively long career in the NFL. He was the quarterbacks coach for the Kansas City Chiefs from 2013 to 2016, primarily coaching Alex Smith in that time frame. Then in 2017, he got promoted to the offensive coordinator position, where once again he was the offensive coordinator with Alex Smith at the helm, but did help coach up a young Patrick Mahomes. Although Mahomes did sit the bench for a large majority of that time, Mahomes was a rookie in that 2017 draft class and did work with Matt Nagy here and there. So Matt Nagy could have a small bit to do with the development of Patrick Mahomes, but obviously is not a major influence there. And then in the 2018 offseason, the Chicago Bears needed a new head coach, so they turned to the one-time offensive coordinator in Matt Nagy, and it worked out fairly well for them in the beginning. They went 12-4 in Nagy's first season as the Chicago Bears head coach, and they went to the playoffs twice in 4 years and had a winning record of, I believe, 29-21, or had a very, very good winning record with the Chicago Bears in that time frame before 2021, where the Chicago Bears kind of fell apart. They fell to a very, very poor record and now hold a relatively high pick in the NFL draft without even really sniffing the NFL playoffs this season. Now, with the Kansas City Chiefs, Matt Nagy's offense was really, really good. They were number 5 in offensive yardage in the NFL that year, and they were number 6 in terms of points per game and points scored in the NFL season. They were also the number 1 team in terms of giveaways, which means they did not give the ball away very often, and overall made for an extremely prolific and very efficient offense for the Kansas City Chiefs. But when Matt Nagy took over as the primary play caller without Andy Reid to really back him up, and without Andy Reid to be there with the guidance and really with the play calling of the Kansas City Chiefs, Matt Nagy's offense dipped off tremendously. In his first year and his best year with the Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy's offense ranked just 21st in yards. He did rank 9th in points, which is really good, top 10 in points scored in the NFL in 2018, but his offense also ranked 22nd in giveaways, meaning they gave the ball away almost more than anybody else. In his best year as the offensive coordinator or the offensive play caller for the Chicago Bears, their best quarterbacking season was Mitch Trubisky, who passed for 3,200 which passed for 3,200 yards and 24 touchdowns. Not a bad season, but not a very good season either. If your quarterback passes for less than 4,000 yards in the NFL nowadays, it is considered a relatively down year, or is considered just not one of the best or most prolific offenses or most prolific passing seasons in the NFL. But with your quarterback usually passing around 3,000 yards, generally your offense, or at least your rushing attack, is pretty good. But despite the fact that that is the normal, that was not quite the case for the Chicago Bears that year, as Jordan Howard, their leading rusher, only rushed for 900 yards, and Allen Robinson, their leading receiver, only had 750 receiving yards. They didn't have a lot of yards. They did score quite a few points in that season, which is a big reason as to why they went 12-4, but their offense overall, outside of points scored, wasn't really all that impressive. They actually gave the ball away a lot more than you would expect. It didn't go on long drives, and really the only reason their points per game was so high was because their defense in 2018 ranked number 1 statistically in every single category, in yards given up, in takeaways, in points allowed. If you look at a defensive statistic from that year, the Chicago Bears are number 1 in that category, meaning that the offense had very, very short fields to work with, had offensive yardage that just, overall, they didn't have to go very far to score many points. They had elite field position more times than not. Their defense did not allow a lot of points, and they didn't have to score a lot of points to win football games. So yes, they scored the 9th most points in the NFL, but they also had the best average field position in the NFL that season. Yes, they went 12-4, but their defense was number 1 in every single category, and the Bears still, they were an impressive team for sure, but they still had a lot of close games that year. For the remainder of Nagy's time in Chicago, it was underwhelming to say the least. They did not score very highly in any statistical category on offense, and after the first year, Matt Nagy's offense didn't score statistically highly in any passing category or rushing category, and they didn't rank higher than 20th in any offensive statistic after 2018. Overall, the Chicago Bears offense has been supremely underachieving over the past couple of years under Matt Nagy's guidance, and Matt Nagy himself has made the decisions to step away from the offensive play calling multiple times with the Chicago Bears because he simply wasn't putting his players in the best positions to succeed. Now, to Matt Nagy's credit, I think he draws up a lot of good plays, and I think he has a lot of really good ideas behind the scenes and in the coaching and the staff meetings. I think he has a lot of good ideas, and I think he draws up some really good plays, but when it comes to actually calling those plays, when it comes to time management on the offense, when it comes to just utilizing your players efficiently, it really isn't in the strong suit of Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's offenses have not been very good over the past couple of years, and there is not really an excuse for it. You can't blame the lack of time. Matt Nagy has had 4 seasons with the Chicago Bears. He has had 4 draft classes. He has had 4 free agency classes. And when you compare the 2017 Chicago Bears to the 2021 Chicago Bears, you'd be hard-pressed to find any reliable veteran from 5 years ago that is still a major part of the offense right now that isn't an offensive lineman. You can't blame the talent either, because the Chicago Bears have had some talent on the offensive side of the ball to be prolific and be efficient offensively, right? You've had Justin Fields, a real talented quarterback in the college football ranks, and was looked at as potentially the best quarterback in the 2021 NFL draft class. He did not look very good his first year under Matt Nagy. Didn't look very good with the Chicago Bears after year 1, although he did make some amazing splash plays and did show the potential that he does have. So Justin Fields didn't look very good. Nick Foles did not look very good. You have guys like Allen Robinson and Taylor Gabriel, Jordan Howard and Darnell Mooney. You have explosive playmakers. You have a quarterback-proof wide receiver. You have a running back that in his rookie season went for 1,300 yards, and in his second year as an NFL running back, in his first year under Matt Nagy, didn't even reach 1,000. You have Taylor Gabriel, who saw a lot of success with the Atlanta Falcons being a deep threat, never really had success with the Chicago Bears offensively. You have guys like Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is a really good wide receiver who runs great routes and has good speed down the boundary, and has really good deep speed to beat coverages and get behind defensive backs. but he was never able to utilize Darnell Mooney effectively. Nick Foles was a Super Bowl MVP with the Philadelphia Eagles, and that Philadelphia Eagles team didn't have that much offensive firepower when you really think about it, right? They were a team heavily driven by the defense, and their offensive weapons included Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Nelson Agholor, and Alshon Jeffrey. Now, Zach Ertz was a top tight end in the NFL, and he was the biggest weapon on that team. We can't forget about that. But if you look at offensively, that 2017 Eagles team, their biggest weapons were an aging Alshon Jeffrey, a drop-riddled Nelson Agholor, an old LeGarrette Blount, and a injury-riddled Jay Ajayi. Those are really your offensive weapons, and Nick Foles succeeded with those weapons. He went on a playoff run. He beat the vaunted Minnesota Vikings defense. He beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He beat the GOAT in the Super Bowl while winning Super Bowl MVP. He went on a run and beat playoff teams with that Eagles offense. So Nick Foles is not a bad quarterback. He started in the NFL. He's won in the NFL. He won a Super Bowl as a starting quarterback. So he can succeed in the NFL, and yet Matt Nagy couldn't do it. Even after trading for Nick Foles after that Super Bowl season, when Nick Foles' confidence should have been a sky high and the blueprint was laid out for his success, he couldn't do it. Justin Fields has so much potential as both a runner and as a passer, and yet Matt Nagy couldn't seem to bring either one to their potential and couldn't seem to bring out the elite traits that Justin Fields has as either a runner or a passer. Now, in my opinion, I think there are far superior options to Matt Nagy being the offensive coordinator. I think that overall, when you look at offensive coordinators with their successes in the past, with their failures in the past, with their ability to call plays, Matt Nagy isn't the right guy for Detroit. The Detroit Lions, in my opinion, should be looking for that guy to call plays. Should be looking for that guy that not only draws stuff up in the classroom, not only a guy that draws stuff up in the team meetings, but a guy that, when it's game day, on the field, can stand there with his players and call the game effectively, can call the game in a way that motivates his players, call the game in a way that maximizes the tools that his players have, because the Detroit Lions, despite popular belief, do have some playmakers on the offensive side of the ball and have a lot of opportunity to go get a few more. Next season, the Lions can have a lot of playmakers on the offense. And if the Lions have an offensive coordinator that can play to their strengths and have an offensive coordinator that can just call a game, play to his players' strengths, and maximize their potentials, the Lions offense can look really, really prolific next year. And unfortunately, Matt Nagy, in my opinion, is not that guy. No, make no mistake, he's had success in the NFL. Make no mistake, there are probably worse guys out there than Matt Nagy. But Matt Nagy simply is not the right fit for Detroit, in my opinion. I don't think he's the right guy. I don't think he's going to maximize our players' potential. And overall, I don't believe he is the right hire for the Detroit Lions. With that being said, I think interviewing him is a good idea. I think just, leaving no stone unturned in the coaching hiring process is not a bad idea. Just because you interview a guy does not mean you're going to hire him. Just because you talk to a guy doesn't mean he's your new offensive coordinator. Talking to everybody that you can, getting as many ideas as possible is a good idea. Interviewing these guys may give Dan Campbell an idea to hire somebody else, may give Dan Campbell an idea that he wants to implement in the offense. Who knows exactly what this interview process is going to do, but at the very worst, you interview Matt Nagy and he doesn't get the job. At the worst case scenario for Matt Nagy, after accepting the interview and after offering to interview him for the OC job, is he doesn't get it. So interviewing him is a good idea. I like that the Lions are leaving no stone unturned, but in my opinion, I don't believe Matt Nagy is the right option for the Detroit Lions. So with all that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about Matt Nagy down in the comments below. Do you think he should be the Lions' next offensive coordinator, or do you think that Matt Nagy should look elsewhere, and the Lions themselves should look elsewhere in the hiring process? I'd be very curious to hear what you guys think, but with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions!